Hi, my name is Dana Arnett, co-host of Wicked Marketing, along with my partner, Carlos Sapene. You can find more information about us and our business on LinkedIn, or if you have any questions, email us at info@wickedbionic.com. Subscribe to Wicked Marketing on Apple Podcasts and write an awesome review for us. We're also on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Play. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Carlos.
And I'm Dana. Welcome to our podcast today. I'm so glad that you're here listening with us. Been talking a lot about something that's really in the news right now that we want to share about. It's about privacy. Everybody's been hearing certainly so much about consumer privacy and the acts that have been created and the behaviors that have been are changing. And as marketers and advertisers, I think there's a lot to be said about what's happening in 2022, how that affects us and the types of things that we will be doing. So Carlos has some great background on what a cookieless world really means.
Yeah, so for those of us that have been around for a while, I'm not going to date myself, but since the onset of the internet, basically, we understand what cookies are all about, right? So I feel like there's a lot of marketers out there and a lot of businesses that hear a lot about privacy. They have a basic understanding of
when you see that button on the bottom on every damn website you go to, right?
But what really is a cookie? In order for you to really understand why this is happening, what it is all about, it's good to take a step back and just understand the purpose of what cookies were or are and are no longer going to be and everything like that. When you interact with the internet in any way, whether that's social media, whether that's on a website, whether that's on an e-commerce site, there are elements of it that are at play, right? One of them is you, obviously, because you're interacting with it, right? The other one is your computer, right? Because that's or your phone, depending on how you're interacting with it. Then there is the browser that you're using, right? So that could be Chrome, that could be Edge, that could be Safari, that could be Firefox. We have no preference here. We're not going to prefer any of them. So that's the third element, right? Because that is a piece of software that runs on your computer.
Yes.
So it's a separate element of it. Then the fourth element that people tend to not really think about is there is the transit of information. So when you're interacting with anything on digital, there is information being sent and information being received. When you put in a URL in a browser, that's sending a request for the pages that belong in that URL. And if you think about a website sort of as a filing cabinet, the browser is the librarian, for example, right? Yeah. And so you would go to the librarian, and you still do to this day, and you would say, hey, I want this book. And they would go into the filing cabinet of the cards, and they would find the location of the book, and then they would give you the location of that book, and then you could go get the book.
Right.
It's the same sort of concept, right? It's just digital. Right. It's the browser's the librarian. It's sending the request. Right. There's a server, which is, let's just think about it as a computer, right? On the other side of that will send you information that then will download onto your machine for the most part, and then you will be able to see it, right? That's at a very basic top level.
That's enough, though.
Yeah, how the internet and interacting with things work. When the internet started, there was a need to track page views, how many page views you were doing, right? Because that's the measure of success of a website. So this concept of cookies was started, right? And when you think about all the elements we just went through, right? The server doesn't know who you are, right? Because it's just getting the request at the end. The request doesn't necessarily know who you are because that's a one-time thing, right? It's going out there and requesting. The browser knows where you are, right? It does know that, but it doesn't, in the past, it didn't collect that. And we'll get a little bit more into it. So this concept of creating a cookie, meaning a unique ID, right? A number, think your social security number, right? It's a very unique number that would it would be a file that was created on your computer that had that ID in it. So then with that unique ID, as you went from website to website to website, Google Analytics, for example, could pick up that cookie and say, oh, this is user 12345.
Right, not personal information, but data.
Not personal information.
Data.
Although at a certain point they started putting personal information in there, but whatever, we won't go too much into that. So that's at the very basic level, the cookie.
So, right? And then when I go to really break it down, when I go to a website and it says accept cookies, that means accept my information.
So basically, as that continued to evolve, websites wanted to find out more information about you, right? So then a website could create its own version of that cookie and put additional information about you on it, like the last few pages that you went to, or this person likes chocolate, or they like these specific shoes, so that when you came back to that website, that cookie would be picked up from your computer, sent to the server, and the server knew, oh, this person liked these shoes last time they were here. Let's show them these shoes again to see if they buy them. Right? So at the very basic level, a cookie was just a file on your computer that had a unique identifier tied to you and a bunch of information about you.
Right, so it's gathering, like a cookie, gathering cookie crumbs.
Yes. Gathering cookie crumbs, exactly, right? So it just kept gathering and growing and having all this information on there, because the website couldn't store that on their end, because they had no way to match it to you.
Of course.
It had to be stored on your end so that they could match it to you as a person. The challenge with that comes with as privacy starts becoming a situation, right? And people are worried about how much about them websites out there now, right? And what can be done with that information. Even though the cookie had a number that was a unique identifier, that number, which was essentially anonymous, could really create a profile about you, right? So even though you were number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if I start adding on there, she lives in Marina Del Rey, she lives on this specific street, she is this age, she has this specific likes, it starts creating a profile of who this human being is, without, you don't have to put a name to it, but if I'm putting your email address on it, if I'm putting any sort of information like that, well, eventually
they're going to know who I am.
It can be mapped to a person, and that's where the problem starts, right? Because these cookies, and there's a way to see like the level of information that these companies were gathering on us. Like Google, in your Google account, has that ability where you can see all the likes, even though, because I work in marketing, mine is completely off. It thinks I'm married. It thinks like, but they create a profile about you. And so there was a concern about the cookies. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how cookies are going away.
And what a world without cookies
is going to look like.
If you'd like to learn more about cookies, Carlos has written a beautiful article about the cookieless world that's coming up in detail. Go to our blog, wickedbionic.com/cookieblog, COOKIE blog, and learn more.
And we're back. So now we understand kind of the basic concept of what the cookie was, the importance of why people were starting to get concerned about it, because it can map up to who you are, and it could reveal certain things that a lot of people, there's a lot
of on the consumer level and on the government level, and just so many levels to it, so much bigger than us.
And they're like with everything on the internet, like with everything on everything, there's good actors and bad actors, right? So bad actors would want to grab some of that information from your computer.
I was going to say, so what prompted this whole 2022?
I think that a lot of it has to do with the pressure that has happened on the tech companies. So one of the things, having come from a history of working at tech companies and entertainment companies, in particular also in the advertising world, the last thing that you want as a large corporate business that is generating revenue from something is to get the government involved, right? So what companies do, because the government always makes everything the most restrictive and complicated thing possible, right? So what happens across the board is that self-regulating organizations get created, right? So for us in media and advertising, the IAB, the Interactive Advertising Bureau, exists, which regulates advertising, right, on digital. And what type of banners exist, what type of data you can collect, all of that kind of stuff is regulated by the IAB. In the case of the overall internet and privacy, there really is regulations from the government, like the FCC and the FTC and the FEC when it's elections. There's some regulations around it, but there wasn't really a strong self-governing body.
Well, it wasn't one voice, right?
There wasn't one voice. There's a lot of disagreement from the larger players like Facebook and Google, and because Facebook wants to continue to collect everything and Google is a little bit more willing to work with privacy. Apple is super privacy focused. Right. So there was no agreement reached with those behemoths in technology to create a self-governing.
It's ongoing conversation
have a real self-governing body.
Right.
We tried in many ways to work around this with things like ad choices and all of these organizations that came out to try and control some of how the data was collected. It just hasn't happened, right?
Not yet.
So the government started looking into it. And the moment that the government starts getting involved, then the tech companies start to react.
Right.
So this initiative to build the cookie-less world was sort of started and aggressively pursued. The idea is that even though Facebook says otherwise, they actually just sent an email this week about how they so are about being regulated. That's complete baloney. That's totally a branding play on their side. It's literally propaganda. But there is an initiative. There is enough pressure is the way that I would do it. It's not an initiative. It's enough pressure on the tech companies to cause action to happen. So let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen. Because these companies are not coming to an agreement, each one of them is coming up with a solution around it, right? And so that's going to create
the Wild West.
It's a Wild West. It's exactly, I didn't want to use the word Wild West because there are going to be parameters around each of these, but it isn't a unified solution. And if they cannot find a unified solution, I foresee this being a regulated industry. So we'll see where this goes. I knew years ago that this was coming because of all the level of data that I saw that we're able to collect.
I think you were talking about this like 4 or 5 years ago when you're like, you say, I'm anticipating that something's going to change with cookies and we have to do our marketing in different ways and our advertising specifically in different ways.
And that's the thing, right? So cookies in the good side of the world are great, right? They do drive a lot of the success in e-commerce. That idea that when you see something and you don't buy it immediately, but then you get it shown again, there's a 30% chance, 30% higher chance that you will buy that product. It's driven those conversions, that remarketing, all of that has driven the economy in a positive way. However, the availability of that information out there and the bad actors that exist out there, that is the problem.
It's what they're doing with that. And I want to say, so if we look at what a cookieless world will look like, what will people, because I don't know that necessarily the consumer will know, but what will that look like for us as advertisers that,
Yeah, so that's where I'm saying that each one of these tech behemoths is, and when I say tech behemoth, I'm talking about the
big tech,
the known players, right? Like Google, like Facebook, Amazon. They're each coming out with their own solutions around it. Some of them are more egregious than others. Some of them.
You mean more extreme?
No, like egregious. like literally, they're like, no, you're doing this, or you're not using our platform
Gotcha.
anymore,
Okay.
Type of thing.
They're pushing
use it or lose it type of thing. So like risk your information being out there, or don't use our platform anymore. So we'll see how it all plays out eventually. Like I said, I feel like it's going to end up being a regulated industry, which is going to be detrimental to e-commerce and the growth of, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if there's empires fall from within, if there's something that can bring down the empire of technology, is their own lack of self-regulation.
Right. Agreed.
It will bring them greedy. The greedy, because when you look at a smaller mom and pop e-commerce shop,
or even $1 million e-commerce shop,
a lot of them function on brand recall. They function on people's reputation, word of mouth. The ones that really, really benefit from remarketing and from being able to
add dollars.
Well, and being able to push related products. Think Amazon. When you're looking at one product, they want to show you 5 different other ones that are similar or they're complementary to it. They are the ones that are benefiting the most, at the largest scale from this. So them not being able to self-regulate. So anyhow, to get to what the cookie-less world will look like is each one of these initiatives, each one of these organizations is kind of putting forward their own initiatives. Facebook is being a little more sneaky, as could be expected, and they are coming up with server-side tracking technologies so that they will work with, for example, website owners, right? This is just an example. They just launched a new plugin for WordPress, right? So I think it's still like 70% of the sites on the internet are built on WordPress.
Right.
That will, instead of having the tracking happening on your computer, it's happening on the server. So now your information is not even on your machine.
Right.
It's anonymized on somebody else's machine. Right. But the reason why that works for them is because the ones that are implementing the blocking of the cookies are the intermediary that stands between you and your computer and the server, which is the browser, right? And who controls the browser? Microsoft controls Edge. Yeah. Apple controls Safari. Right. Google controls Chrome. Right. Yeah. And then there's Firefox.
It's all the same game.
But it's all them. Right. It's all them still controlling it. Right. So they're functioning as gatekeepers and saying, okay, we're not going to let you put cookies on people's machines anymore. And if you can't go through the software to put the cookie, you can't put the cookie. So no matter what Facebook says, they could say mass, it doesn't matter, right? Because they can't put the cookie because Microsoft and Apple and Google won't let them put the cookie in there, right? Totally get it. So they do the server-side solution, right? So you think, okay, Google with Chrome is not letting people put the cookie there. They're being the good guy. Yeah, no, that's not it either, right? So what Google is putting forward is they're so nice. They call it Project Turtle Dove. It's a turtle dove.
Talk about branding.
They love you, the turtle doves. They're so sweet and nice. And they turtle dove, basically. So Project Turtle Dove moves all of your preferences, your likes, the information that's collected on you per se, and anonymizes it at the browser level. So now it's on Chrome. So now it's Chrome that knows everything about you, right? And they create a anonymized number, right? That's going to change all the time, but that they are able to map it down. So then the ad server, right? The one serving the ad is going to get a request for an ad, and that request is going to include information about the person, but it's going to happen every time. So the ad server itself won't be able to track this person on multiple sites, but the browser will be able to tell them whether this person likes cars or whatever.
It's just another back-end way to do it.
Basically, it makes them the gatekeeper. Right?
So it's almost like it's more powerful.
Yeah, because the only technology that has all the information is the browser.
The big guys,
which is Google.
Guys.
Right? So Facebook is fighting to be the one to know in the back end. Google is fighting to be the one to know in the front end. And Apple, our friends at Apple, are fighting to be the ones in control of mobile. So the way that mobile works is cookies have never existed on mobile. They just don't. It's not the way it works. So what you get is a device ID. That device ID is tied to your phone. Mm-hmm. And that device ID could then be mapped based on your behaviors and logins into apps and all that kind of stuff by tracking you. And that could track you, which is what happened recently, or was kind of solved recently, but not really, is that apps like Facebook could track what you were doing on other apps on your phone, which people don't even realize that just by having Facebook on your phone, even if you never used it, every time you went on Tinder, it knew what type of guys or girls you like. Every time you went on Twitter and were tweeting something out, it knew what information you were tweeting out. Anytime you went on Amazon, they could know what products you were buying.
So you're saying if you don't want that, you don't install the app.
Basically, right? And so what Apple is doing now is they said, okay, you can no longer track, unless the user lets you, all those interactions between the apps, but we can.
So we can't opt out as the consumer?
You can opt out as a consumer, but Apple said to all the other publishers, like Facebook and everybody,
but they're the gatekeeper.
We're the gatekeeper now, and you can't do it without the user's consent. However, we, Apple, can.
We'll take anything we want.
We'll take anything we want because this is our platform, and we will track all of those interactions, and we will sell Apple ads.
Exactly what I was going to say.
We will sell Apple ads against those, and the user can opt out of all of your stuff through the normal channels, but there's a completely different channel for the user to opt out from Apple doing.
On my iPhone. Got it.
And people are not aware of that.
No.
Right?
But we're telling them now.
They're not telling anybody. You just have to really know about the tech world to know this. And then there's our friends at Amazon who are just special cookies that they are, right? So not only do they have this really aggressive IoT infrastructure. IoT, for people that don't know, is the Internet of Things, right? So that's your Alexa at home. That's your every device in your home now connecting to Alexa.
I got too many.
I literally got an email yesterday from Alexa, right? And the email, I will show it to you. The email says, hey, we recently were communicated, your Alexa was recently communicated to by another device in your house to let Alexa know that you can connect that device to Alexa. Wow. Here are the steps so that you can connect that device, which was a new TV, so that you can connect that device to your Alexa.
Wow.
Why are they so interested in all my devices being connected to Alexa? Data. Because they want to collect that data. Right. So today is June 7th, right? Yes. So I believe it's today or tomorrow that Alexa enables Sidewalk. And Sidewalk is, if you haven't disabled it, you should go on your Alexa app and disable it, is the ability now for Alexa to not only track the devices in your house, but to allow devices from that are connected to other Alexas around your house to talk to your Alexa and use your internet.
Okay, so as soon as we're done, we're running into the other room, and we both bought new iPhones yesterday because we're supporters, and you're going to disable it on my phone for me, right?
So literally, any devices that are connected to Alexa, now when they go by your house, will connect to your Alexa. So now they not only know when people are in their home and what they're doing in their home, but when they're outside of their home,
they can have the robber come to my house. Well, they'll alert the robber.
So now your neighbor's Alexa will pick up when you're outside in the patio near their house on whatever you're doing. So
okay, now that's
welcome to the cookieless world where it is really not about privacy. Sorry to tell you, it's about the big tech companies knowing everything.
And, we don't know how much the consumer is going to care. As advertisers, we'll do another podcast on what we do and what we've been doing for the last 5 years to kind of go around this as marketers and take advantage of different routes because for our clients to be successful. But I also want to say, just a reminder that if you go to wickedbionic.com/ cookie, what is it?
Cookie blog.
Oh yeah. wickedbionic.com/cookie blog. Carlos has given a lot more detail on the blog, and I know it would be a great read. So take a look at that. And then also, if you want to talk more about this in your business or your corporation is interested in learning about advertising around what will happen in 2022 and is beginning now, please reach out to us at info@wickedbionic.com, or just go to our website, wickedbionic.com, and check out our contact page.
And I can't stress of all the podcasts that we've done, I can't stress enough for anyone listening right now that if you rely at all on digital marketing, you should talk to someone, whether it's us, we're happy to do it, or someone else out there, because the change is going to destroy a large portion of the e-commerce business for the people that are not aware and don't take action immediately. And there's many things that you can do. We'll do a whole podcast on some of those things, but we've been researching this for a while. We are implementing for our clients solutions immediately. Don't wait until that day to do it.
So life is not going to fall apart. The world's not going to crack open, but it is important if you're a business owner. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe to and share Wicked Marketing on Apple Podcasts and write an awesome review for us. We are also on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Play. See you next time.